listening to the Straight to Video podcast with Rob Lane.
It's that time again. We're here with a brand new episode of the Straight to Video podcast, and as always, I'm your host Rob Lane, welcoming you on board for another chat into the past with some of my friends who I've been lucky enough to meet over the past 20 years or so touring and playing in bands. Today I'm talking to Kurt Frohlich, who is the frontman for Steve Riley's LA Guns, along with Kelly Nichols and Scott Griffin. Kurt is joining us on this episode from his home in Orlando, Florida, and it was great to catch up with this guy as we'd not seen each other for over 10 years when we were on tour together in the UK and Europe way back in 2007. At that time it was my first tour with the Bullet Boys, and Kurt was over as the frontman for Faster Pussycat on their 20th anniversary tour. That was such a killer lineup of the band. Joining original members Brent Muscat, Eric Stacey and Brett Bradshaw was Kurt on vocals and also Todd Kearns on guitar. Such a great band, and the shows they played on that tour was so great. Kurt and I hit it off during those few weeks over a love of horror movies, so it was a lot of fun to reconnect recently and talk all about his favourite films and memories from back in the day. Of course, it's no secret there's two versions of LA Guns out there right now, so I was interested to pick Kurt's brain on how he handles stepping up to the plate and fronting these iconic rock acts, as well as grabbing some cool video store memories along the way. Outside of his work with LA Guns, Kurt is always incredibly busy as a working musician and voiceover actor. You can find him playing in numerous bands throughout the Florida area, along with his band The Hooligans, who have recently released a new album, Tear It Down, which is available from thehooligansorlando.com. And if you want to hear a bunch of new LA Guns material with Kurt on vocals from their upcoming album Renegades, then head on over to laguns.net and you can hear all the new tracks there. So thanks for checking out the Straight to Video podcast. I've got some really great interviews in the bag which I can't wait to share with you over the coming weeks. But right now, let's dive into a great chat with the awesome Kurt Frohlich of LA Guns.
Showing your age. One chalk hook and I'm hypnotized. You got it all wrapped up like sugar and spice. Night will come and she will take it all. But everything about you makes me crawl. Yeah. Like the high command.
Hello, there he is.
There we go. I got you now.
Nice one, mate. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How you been?
I'm good, mate. It's been a long time since I've seen you. I spoke to you.
Oh, no kidding, right? No kidding.
If you want to take us back to when you were a really young kid, was music a big part of your childhood then?
Music started for me pretty early because my family, everybody from aunts and uncles to my parents to my cousins, everyone was musical. My uncle was a professional horn player, and then my cousin taught me piano. She was like a concert pianist, so I took piano from her for like 5 years. And then like at family gatherings like Christmas, someone would bring a clarinet, someone would bring a trumpet, 3 or 4 people played piano and people sang. So it was like a big jam. So it was from when I was really young, I was always around music. So it was kind of a natural thing. So, and then my cousin moved in with us when he was a teenager. My parents took him in and his band rehearsed in our basement. During that time, he bought me my first Kiss album when I was 6 years old.
Right.
Self-titled Kiss album, and that was it. I wanted to take drum lessons, so a few years later, I took drum lessons.
Cool, man. So at what time did you gravitate to guitar?
In high school.
Yeah.
Me and 2 of my buddies there, 2 guitar players, we're all Who fans, so we learned a bunch of Who stuff, and like playing that on drums for a beginner is impossible.
Yeah, that's setting the bar pretty high.
Yeah, but we loved Substitute and all those songs and Can't Explain. And And so they would play, two guitar players, and I played drums. And I realized, man, I'm not, probably because I was like listening to these Who songs. I'm like, how the hell is he doing that? I have no idea how to do that. So I started playing. My friend would leave his guitar there, and my dad had a flamenco guitar. So my dad taught me a few chords, and the other guys taught me some chords. And then I stopped playing the drums, and I really dove into the guitar.
Yeah.
I had CCR's greatest hits, which my cousin gave me, and I just learned all of that because they were all like cowboy chords. They're all like the 4 or 5 necessity chords. So from there, I just kind of built it, and then got into Van Halen and all the great 80s rock stuff. And I religiously got the tab books and learned everything. Right. So I'd sit in my room and play guitar for like 7 hours straight. It wasn't work to me. It was just like I wanted to learn all these cool songs, Metallica and Master of Puppets and 1984 was in there. So I was learning all that stuff.
And this was in Canada, of course, right?
Yes, in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, yes.
Was rock a big music scene back then?
Yeah, Canada takes after the United States with culture and stuff like that. There's a lot, Canada has its own little music scene too, not as big, obviously, as the United States, but it takes after, it's influenced by New York or Los Angeles. So it's the same kind of thing. So in Canada, you had Vancouver, which was like our Los Angeles, and then Toronto, which was like our eastern city, kind of like New York. Yeah. So if you were in a band, you kind of had to go back then. You couldn't do stuff you had to either tour or you had to go to one of those cities to try and get signed.
Right. So where does Alberta sit within the geography of all that?
Alberta is a province next to British Columbia. British Columbia is on the west coast with big city Vancouver there. And then Alberta is the next province over, which has 2 major cities, which Calgary and Edmonton, where I lived. There was lots of bars to play back in the late 80s, early 90s. I graduated high school like in 90s, so I didn't professionally play. We played like cafes and stuff when I was in high school. We didn't do any bars or anything. We weren't old enough yet. But as soon as I turned 18, I started playing the bars and tried to get in bands. And back in the 80s and 90s, if you had to have chops. Like you couldn't get in a band unless you're in a punk rock band, but you had to have the look. You had to have, and you had to be able to play, especially if you're a guitar player.
Who was your poster idol at that time? Who was you imitating, if anybody?
Eddie Van Halen always, but I got really into Steve Vai from that Eat 'Em and Smile album.
You pick these big bars like Keith Moon and Steve Vai.
Yeah, and like my first band, we would cover like YYZ by Rush, and we used to do some Mr. Big covers. And so we really challenged ourselves. Yeah, it was a lot of sitting in your room practicing, I remember we used to do Addicted to That Rush by...
Holy shit, right?
Yeah, like crazy stuff like that. We might not have done it perfectly, but that was the kind of stuff I was into, that guitar, real Guitar Hero type stuff. But then at the roots of it all, I'm like a Pete Townsend fanatic. I used to skateboard professionally on a demo team. So I got into all the thrash punk.
Right.
And like Dead Kennedys and the California punk rock stuff like Agent Orange. And I was really into that. And that still has a big influence on my simplistic. I like writing simplistically. And, I'm actually writing some Ramones-esque type stuff right now because I'm bored out of my mind in my home. So
you seem pretty open to any kind of music, especially with all like the cover bands which you do and stuff like that. You do a different one for pretty much every kind of music scene. It's awesome.
Any of the cover stuff that I do to make money it's 60s to 90s.
Yeah.
People ask me like, do you do anything past like 99? I'm like, not really. I don't really want to learn that stuff. And if I'm going to I'd rather write my own songs.
Yeah. Things got very fragmented after that time anyway. So no one really knows what kind of category to put it in.
It wasn't as much style.
No.
I don't know. Music had style back, it was about attitude.
Yeah.
It's about attitude, like the Dead Boys and stuff like that was attitude, man. They didn't have to have a lot of talent.
So one thing, I really want to talk to you about is your love of horror films, because I know you're a big horror fan.
I'm a huge horror fan.
So how did that fascination start? You're as a product of the 80s, I guess, so all those big 80s films. Where did your fascination start?
I think back in the day, you would go rent VHS movies. So when you grew up with friends, I remember even in elementary school, which was in Canada, was up to the 6th grade. You would have like, hey, Mom, can I sleep over at Scott's house tonight? Yeah, sure. And it would be like, okay, we ride your bikes down to the video store. Oh, we're going to order pizza. and we're going to get like 3 movies. And we'd always, back then you're a kid, so you'd want to get like a sex comedy or something. You'd be like, make sure the parents didn't see that you got like hard bodies or something. You know what I mean? Or something like that. And then we'd always get 1 or 2 horror movies. So, and I think one of the horror movies I really remember, a couple of them that scared the crap out of me to the point where months after I would just be in bed. Like the 3 that I really remember that did that to me were the first Nightmare on Elm Street, the Amityville Horror, and The Exorcist.
Right.
Those 3 movies like got in my head to the point where I was like, well, what if this and what if that? When you're a young kid like that, you're thinking everything. So I think later on in life, I really when you overcome that fear, obviously you get older, I really just became fascinated with them and really just got into all different sorts of genres.
It's weird because as a kid, it does scare you, but you just want to keep going back for more.
Yeah.
Quite addictive. Like, I'm terrified of this. I don't want to go to sleep, but I want to watch another one.
I remember that. I'm like, after I watched Nightmare on Elm Street, I'm like, I'm never watching a horror movie again. I was pretty young. So.
I need to ask, what was the name of the video store you used to go to?
Oh, man. Well, of course, they had all the major chains, like same thing in Canada. They had Blockbuster Video, and they had like the mom and pop places.
They're the ones.
What was cool, as you know, it's about the hunt too. You got to hunt down stuff. Like you go into a video store and you ask that dude behind the counter, and you take some up to the counter. He'd be like, "Oh, okay, you're renting Dawn of the Dead. Oh, all right. Well, have you seen this movie or whatever?"
Mm-hmm.
You're like, "Whoa, what's that? Tell me." It's like, well, you can't really get it, but they have it at our other store. I think it was called Next Act in Edmonton, Alberta. I think that's what it was called. And they had 2 stores. That was the place where you could get like the crazy stuff that might have been like some of the X-rated horrors like that you couldn't get at like Blockbuster Video or the mainstream because they were just way too much or whatever. So and I used to get books too. I remember having a book. It was called Gore Score.
Right. I've not heard of that one.
It was about like all like I when I was a kid, I got into the gory movies, so I had to know.
Yeah.
For the practical effects stuff, of course, back then. So it was shocking to see some of the stuff, especially like Tom Savini would do in all his movies, from The Burning to Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead. So back when those movies were out on video, I really got into the zombie thing back then when nobody was into zombies.
That always fascinates me, how popular zombie movies have become in the last, let's say, 15, 20 years or so. There never seemed to be many American zombie movies back in the day. You had the main ones, like the George Romero ones, but other than that, there weren't many, not from what I can remember anyway, many mainstream US ones.
Yeah, there was a lot of Italian ones.
Yeah, it was always that kind of thing, which kind of I always thought was a bit strange, but now you just can't escape them. They're all over the place.
Yeah, it's become like scroll past the zombie movie. Yeah. And I think that happened with vampires too. It's like, okay. And I think that was from, because I remember reading the book when I was on the road. I read Interview with the Vampire.
Okay.
Partly because I heard that L.A. Guns was into it too. So I'm like, oh, I got to check that out. This is probably like 1990, 91 or something. So, and then the vampire craze hit after, and then it turned into Twilight. And then.
Well, yeah. So were you allowed to rent R-rated movies then at the video store? You didn't need a pass from the parents or anything like that?
Video stores I rented from, like in Canada, they would be in like a strip mall. So they'd be like the convenience store, which was like Max, I think they called that. Sometimes 7-Eleven, but then they'd have a video store, and then they'd have a Chinese takeout restaurant. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you'd go in there and it'd just be like a mom and pop place. So they wouldn't be like, you can't rent this.
All right.
The only stuff you couldn't rent was through what I called the saloon doors, the adult movies.
Was that a real thing? Because I've never saw it in the UK.
In Canada, I know they would always have like the saloon doors that would open and automatically close, and it'd be like, oh, there's the adult section, but that was totally a thing.
Wow.
Most video stores had that. Like obviously the big chains didn't, but yeah, it was like they'd have a little self-made adult section sign.
Incredible. Where else did you find out about movies from? Was you a Fangoria fan?
Yeah, Fangoria. And I think what was cool too, it was all word of mouth. So people would just, you'd find out from friends like, have you seen Faces of Death? That was like the biggest taboo thing. And then you'd watch it and be like, I don't know if it's staged or if it's real but it was stuff like cult stuff like that, where it's like, that's the stuff I had to see.
Yeah.
And my cousin was a huge collector of vinyl albums and videotapes. So he was probably 10 years older than me. So he would say, have you got this or that? And then you'd search everywhere. You'd call places and see if they have it. And that was part of the fun.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's like everything. It makes it kind of not as rewarding when you see it.
With Netflix, as great as it is, and I love it, but you give something 10 minutes and this sucks.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Yep.
I'm out.
Yeah, it's a gamble of your time now, right?
Yeah. Whereas if you'd spent 45 minutes to an hour looking for a film in a video store, you were going to watch that thing to the end.
Absolutely. Even if it was like you had to fast forward some of it and then you continue, but you always went to the end.
Were your parents okay with you watching horror films?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. They were pretty open to all my choices of entertainment and arts and everything. They were big supporters of me. So
do what you want, but stay out of trouble, that kind of thing.
Yeah. You're at our house watching it. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I remember we got caught. That movie I mentioned, Hard Bodies, our neighbors, he was staying at our house and we rented Hard Bodies and we got caught. We got in trouble. And another time.
Probably the tamest movie of all time.
Yeah, it was, but the cover I remember was like a girl with like suntan lotion spelt in Hard Bodies on her. You know what I mean? And then another time we were at a friend's house and we were watching Kentucky Fried Movie. And it was the scene it was called Sorority Girls in Trouble or something. And there's people having sex in the shower. And the mom walked in. It was a birthday party right when, a naked girl getting pressed up against the shower. And she was like, everybody, although the birthday party was over right there. That was it. Everyone had to go home.
I always used to find it hilarious. I used to visit my grandparents at the weekend, every weekend religiously, and they'd always rent movies and there'd usually be a horror film, which I'd sit and watch with them and my uncles and stuff like that. And they'd let me watch the goriest, most violent stuff. But if it got to like some boobs, close your eyes. Yeah. Close your eyes. It was always that.
Yep.
But I remember that. People being slaughtered.
I remember that watching Stripes. The nude scene comes on with Bill Murray and his girlfriend. My parents are like, close your eyes. I'm like, we just watched all the swearing and the Jello wrestling scene or mud wrestling with John Candy. Like, okay.
Parent logic.
Yeah.
So you being a dad now with a young daughter, how would you feel about wanting to watch horror movies? Because they're a lot more realistic these days.
I introduced her we watched Creature from the Black Lagoon together.
Okay.
That was a while ago. And she just says, she's 9 now, but this was a while ago. And she's like, Daddy, that's a guy in a suit. I'm like, okay, good. It's a guy in a suit. Because I think we watched Goosebumps or something.
Okay.
And we'll put her to bed.
Those are really well made, man.
Yeah. We put her to bed and then she's like, our ghost real. Like you hear her yelling from her room, our ghost real. And then she can't sleep. She's like, I can't sleep. I'm scared. I'm like, oh boy. So that's what we don't want. Even some PG-13 movies will freak out a kid, man. We'll be like, oh, we better stop this now because we know we're going to get the call from the bedroom at 10 p.m., Do
you think she'll be into more horror films later on, do you think?
That's something I really want to look forward to like, she'll be like, hey, Dad, let's binge all the Friday the 13th this weekend. I'm all right, let's go. Let's do it.
Snip to the store, get some food. And
I'm really looking forward to that. I'm, maybe when she's 16 years old, she'll be ready for that.
So do you remember the first horror movie you saw at the cinema?
Back then, you couldn't get into movies. The only way you could sneak in. I remember sneaking into Trading Places. That was like, we got into Trading Places and that was like, but that's not a horror movie, but maybe Fright Night, the first Fright Night, maybe.
Okay, good one.
Yeah.
Good one. That's a good one to get in.
Yeah.
You couldn't persuade your parents to take you. Was it the same movie rating in Canada as it is in the US where it's but you can go with your parents? Okay.
Pretty much. I think they had a mature. I don't know if mature was different from the States where you had to be 14. Mm-hmm. And then rated R was that you had to be 18. Right. So I remember turning 14 opened up a lot of movies to you. You know what I mean? Then you could go see Purple Rain or something. You know what I mean? Because it would open up some stuff. You had to be 14. So that was a big deal turning 14 in the 80s,
I was like a massive Nightmare on Elm Street fan in the 80s. And I was in the States when Part 4 came out. That was at the kind of the height of all the Freddy mania. So I was like, I've got to go and see it before all my friends in the UK. So I was persuading my dad and my stepmom to take me to see it. They must have hated every second of it, having to sit through that film. But I was like in heaven getting to see it at the cinema. That was just the best.
I think that was my parents' standpoint too. It's like, we're not going to this movie. We're going to go to Annie. I'm like, oh, no, I'm not going to Annie. I remember getting paid. Me and my friend, his sister, paid us to go to Annie.
Yeah.
She gave it. We were kids. And we were like, we want to see, Nightmare on Elm Street. No. Yeah. I was like, oh man, okay. Pay us. We'll go see that.
Yeah, that was like the worst film to see when you're at that age.
Yeah, the worst.
God.
Young boy. Yeah.
I want to go and see Cobra with Stallone or something like that.
Mm.
So if you could watch a horror film from back in the day now, which kind of still hold up for you? Have you got like a go-to?
Obviously, any of the Universal Monster stuff is still, it's timeless.
Where did that bite for you then? Because obviously you got the tattoos of all the classic Universal monsters.
I just love the style of it and the whole mystery of it. And it's so romantic kind of to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that's one of the main attractions to it,
Like the timeless quality of it and just like the classiness of it in a way.
Yeah. And I just love stylistically and how they revolutionized the way movies were shot, I think, like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think even then, like horror movies were like lowbrow. People saw it as lowbrow, like people kind of still do today. But so I don't know. They kind of have that romanticism that I like about them.
How did you get into them then? Was that through VHS or was it like late night TV showings?
I think I got into them after like the 80s.
Right?
Yeah. When really got into like the Dracula and Frankenstein. Those were the two that I just loved.
Yeah.
And then from there, the rest come. But, I would sit and I bought the box set on DVD of those when they released those green covered ones.
There's some obscure stuff perhaps not in the universe. Are you a fan of like the Hammer movies as well?
Yeah, I like the Hammer stuff.
Yeah.
That's one thing I've always said. I got to dive deep and just do them all.
Because that's where the obscure stuff is. That's like stuff you've never heard of.
And it's kind of confusing too, because you don't know what order they're in. Which one are you supposed to watch first? Because they're not labeled 1, 2, 3, 4. It was always like Dracula AD something. And then, but yeah, Christopher Lee is really cool Dracula, in my opinion. Like really creepy and scary. Yeah.
I mentioned it to a few other people, but there's always been like an association with hard rock, heavy metal and horror films. Why do you think there is that connection? Do you think we're all into I don't know. It's always been there, really.
I think edge. I think the edginess of rock and roll and the edginess of horror movies where there's not a set scale of rules. That's what I like. That's why I love guitar too. There's not really rules. You can bend notes. You can, you can change your sound. You can do anything you want. And that's kind of how I see rock and roll. It's like, and horror movies kind of, I don't know, they just kind of fit into that realm of like expect the unexpected, and you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah. That's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah, you can watch a movie that's why I don't even like to watch some of the trailers. Because you're like, most of the trailers nowadays,
oh man,
they give away the entire story.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't want to know the entire storyline. And so I just kind of go for you, just dive in. You know how it is.
The amount of times I've going back to Netflix, but the amount of times I've watched something on Netflix, and then if I see something really good, I want to recommend it to some friends of mine. I'm like, going cold, do not watch the trailer because you'll enjoy it so much more.
That's how it was in the day with VHS. You walked through the rows and you went by the box.
Yep.
This looks cool. Oh man, we got a chopping mall? Yeah, we got to get chopping mall. I remember me and my friend renting Chopping Mall, and we were like, because he was like, that's stupid. Chopping Mall? Really? Play on words of shopping mall? Forget it. We're not getting that. And so I remember renting and riding our bikes home, just going, Chopping Mall, Chopping Mall. Like we were so pumped to see it. But yeah, that's how you rented movies.
Did you enjoy it? Was it worth it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't care how much budget a movie has, man. As long as it's like, it keeps you entertained, and there's got to be scares, but there's got to be laughs too. I love something that's like a Return of the Living Dead, like that. All those movies I love.
Yeah,
where it's like they're still like creepy zombies and scary, but it has the punk rock and it has the violence and it has the comedy.
Is that up there in one of your favorites, Return of the Living Dead?
Yeah, that's definitely a go-to. I could watch that one once every couple months.
That's got one of those. It's one of those moments movies. Oh, this bit's coming up. This bit's coming up.
Yeah, it's a timestamp of that time too.
Yeah, just the best. Just the best. Do you ever do like comic cons or anything like that? Have you met any of your heroes from horror films?
Since I gig so much, I've never got to go to like Comic Cons or anything. I'm always gigging, especially when they have them. It's always on weekends. And they have some big ones here in Orlando.
Who'd be on your wish list, do you think? Would it be the actors, or would you go for, like, back in the 80s, people like Tom Savini and Rick Baker? They were as big as the movie stars themselves, if not bigger.
Yeah, I'm big into Tom Savini and interested. I watched his documentary they did on him, and some of the classic Scream Queens are cool, you know. But I don't know. I just would love to be around fans and geek out and talk about stuff. You know what I mean?
That's what you need. You need to get a music gig at a Comic Con.
Yeah. When I used to play in a Kiss tribute, they've asked for our Kiss band to play, you know.
Yeah.
Because it's usually around Halloween, so they want. But we don't really do that anymore. So we're all just too busy.
Damn it. So bringing things back to the music, how did your move from Canada to America happen? Because that, if I get my dates right, did I read it was in 1999?
Yeah. In 99, my band, The Loving Dead, which was it was like David Bowie, like Ziggy Stardust meets the Bride of Frankenstein movie. You know what I mean? It was like that. Green feather boas and like makeup and glitter and, you know, like platform boots and stuff. So it was very 70s influence with that, with it very much a tie-in of like the horror vibe. Not as much as like, this was kind of right when Rob Zombie's first album came out. I think so. It was like mid 90s where he was really pushing that kind of horror thing, whereas we were kind of pushing like the 70s glam rock. Well, we got a management deal that moved us to Las Vegas because they had an office there, and they wanted to get us out of Canada to try and sign us to a US deal. So we went down there and we wrote songs and we rehearsed and wrote songs and rehearsed and played lots of gigs. And then our management company moved in the big internet crash. They were a .com company. So, and I was like, I'm not going back to Canada. I'm going to stay here, and I don't want to go home.
Did the rest of the band go back?
The drummer went back, yes. You know, it was hard. We didn't have jobs. We didn't have green cards. So eventually I got a green card playing with bands, and then ended up staying there and doing different acts, and started, you know, when I was in Las Vegas, I played with everyone I did some shows with Marky and Ramone. And then I did, as you know, the Faster Pussycat thing. We went and toured with Bullet Boys with you guys and Enough's Enough. And then we had a little girl, her name's Jade, and we wanted to get her into better schools. So we moved to Orlando. So I've been here for almost 5 years.
So in the past, you've been the singer of Faster Pussycat, and now you handle the frontman duty for Steve Riley's LA Guns. Were you a fan of both of those bands in the 80s?
Yeah, that's the stuff I really loved. I like bands in the 80s with like image and attitude, you know. And so when I was in high school, I was into everything from the Ramones to the Clash and all that kind of stuff to punk rock. But I didn't get into the spandex type 80s glam rock as much. I loved Enough's Enough and good songs and stuff, but I really was taken more by like the sleazier street type bands like Faster Pussycat and LA Guns and Guns N' Roses. And that's the stuff I was really into. Yeah. Because I didn't need music to be time changes and it has to be complex and I'm just like, just write cool, simple rock songs. That's what I was into. Yeah.
But I think those bands which you mentioned, like the GNR and LA Guns and stuff, they're influenced by the people who you like the Hanoi Rocks and Dogs D'Amour and all that kind of stuff, which is a product of like the New York Dolls and all that kind of thing, which is probably stems from Bowie and all that kind of stuff, which you was enjoying. So it kind of makes sense. Yeah, exactly.
T-Rex and Bowie. And really, some of my main influences have been British. Yeah. Like Bowie, T-Rex, The Sweet. And I have a British rock band. We just put an album out. We actually recorded remotely, but I have a band here called The Hooligans. It's with guys from the Blue Man Group, 7 Mary 3, and we do just British rock. Yeah. So everything from obviously Beatles, Stones, Zeppelin, Kinks, The Who. We do lots of Who, but then we go into it's 60s to 90s. So everything up to Oasis. You know? Oasis and Blur.
Yeah. When's the album out?
The album's out. It is on thehooligansorlando.com. It's the only place you can get it. So put in The Hooligans hooligan.com, HOOLIGANS. And it's 11 songs and it's got 4 covers on it. We do like a Kinks cover and we do a Sweet cover and a Beatles. And then we have 7 originals on there that are in the style of just straight ahead type, influenced by British rock.
That's awesome.
And we all sing, 4 of us sing. So we're pretty happy with it, doing it remotely from our houses.
That's the future right now.
Yeah.
So what would the young teenage Kurt think of you having sung for Faster Pussycat and LA Guns? Would he be like, what? Holy shit.
You know, be careful what you wish for, because like I remember I cut my teeth on Kiss. And when I was like 19, 20 years old, I got asked to be in a Kiss tribute. And it started as we were going to be original band. And then we were managed by Paul Stanley. And we said, what about we were sending Paul demos of our stuff? And it sounded like...
Rewind a bit. How did Paul Stanley get involved?
The guy I was working with, his name is Benny. He was managed by Paul Stanley. He had an original band called Unchained. And yes, they sounded like Van Halen. It sounded like 1984 Van Halen. That disbanded. And then my buddy from Calgary, Brad, called me and we drove out to Vancouver and we played some original stuff and we wrote some stuff. We recorded. He had a home studio. Back then it was tough to have a real home studio, but he had a home studio this is like 93 maybe. And so we would send off demos to Paul Stanley and we were like, wow, Paul Stanley's going to hear our stuff. This is so cool. And this was right when they were putting out Carnival of Souls.
Okay.
Remember that?
Yeah.
So it was like Alice in Chains kind of. It wasn't really Kiss, that in my opinion. And he said, well, I can't really, we would send him stuff and it sounded like something off 1984 Van Halen.
Yeah.
And he was like, I can't really do anything with this right now. Like that was when 93 was when, no, you don't want guitar solos and harmonies in your music. Forget it, you know? So we said, what about doing a Kiss tribute? And he said, you have our blessing. So we rehearsed, we studied tapes, we put money in, we got a pyro show, we got a pyro guy, lighting guy, and we went out on the road for like 3 years. And that really, it was like my university. It got me.
Yeah. And you was Ace Frehley in that one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it got my performance level up because that's the hardest, man, to do that in the costume and the pyro and the cues, the choreography, and like those guys, Kiss, man, set the bar high, man. So doing that, I think it was kind of like I learned how to perform live to that, you know.
You do the Kiss tribute, then you end up being in Faster Pussycat. So the teenage self is like, which one's coming next kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I remember after that ended, after the Kiss tribute ended, I was like, I want to audition for like, I hear Enough's Enough might need a guitar player or whatever. Yeah. You know, I was living in Canada at the time. So I was like, and we toured Japan with the Kiss thing. And Shelly, she was our road manager. She was out of Los Angeles and she had ties with Kiss. And so I kept in touch with her saying, if you know anybody that is auditioning guitar players, please let me know. Cause I want to come and play for, you know, LA Guns or, you know, any of that genre of music, like hard rock stuff. And then, you know, fast forward how many years later, I'm like, yep. Faster Pussycat. Start playing with Brent Muscat. Next thing you know, we're doing that and LA Guns.
And you're taking on, like, I'm going to say the hardest role, taking on the singer role. How do you approach that? Because you always do such a professional job. So I would imagine that most audiences these days see it in a live format. So I would imagine they're pretty welcoming. I would imagine it's just like the keyboard warriors who decide to kick up some shit about it.
Yeah.
Do you build up a wall prior to that? Or you just, I'm going to go in, do the best job I can do, and they'll take it for whatever
I think it was from doing the Faster Pussycat thing. This before Facebook is what it is now. You didn't see all the haters as much. You know what I mean? And I think that kind of guarded me from it a little bit and took, you know, and I remember Steve Riley telling me after I said, yeah, okay, I'll do it. Because I was reluctant because I don't sing like Phil. Right. Phil's a great singer, but I'm just not that singer. That's not how I sing. And he said, get ready for the shit as soon as I said yes, because people are gonna say we suck. People are gonna say we're fucking idiots. They're gonna say it. And I'm like, oh, I know. And I don't care. Because I was on the fence. I was like, I don't know if I should, you know, my wife and other people were like, dude, like, do it. Who cares? Do you like the band? Yeah, I love the band. Do you like their songs? Yeah, I love their songs. Okay, well, there you go. And if just because I'm not going to sing the songs exactly the way they were recorded, I don't think, you know, as long as you do them justice and treat them with respect, treat the songs with respect, I think that's what the fans want. And
Yeah.
definitely at our first show, the M3 show, there was a lot of arm folders out there,
Right.
watching, going, all right, let's watch this guy suck.
Yeah.
Let's watch this band suck. And then when we didn't, I think people were like, hey, all right,
Yeah.
cool.
That's great. They see it in the flesh. And I always like that about Johnny Solinger when he was in Skid Row. Whenever you saw him live, you knew it was genuine. He paid respect to the stuff, and he'd come on. He's like, who put on Slave to the Grind before they came out tonight? And it sounded as good as it did back in the day. And he's there with the fans. And I always bought into that. I was like, good on you. And sang great, always did a great show, always 100%. So I'm always on board with that for sure.
I think our standpoint is give the fans what they want. And that's what we did in Faster Pussycat. We did like the first 3 songs in a row off of Wake Me When It's Over. And people were like, oh shit, the first 3 songs? Yes. And I'm like, see, that's what I want. That's what I would want to hear.
And it's easy to tell you're not dialing it in either. A lot of bands can dial it in and you can tell, but as long as you come out there 100%.
Yeah. If, I'm a fan, I wouldn't do it if I wasn't a fan.
Yeah.
Like if a band asked me to play with them, then I wasn't into their music, I wouldn't do it. And I don't want to get in a van and go on tour full time either. So.
Well, I'm excited to see what happens next with it once things kind of get back to some normality. And because you've got some new music out, right?
Yeah, our next single, we've released 2 singles so far, Crawl and Well-Oiled Machine on Golden Robot Records, and they've been received really well.
Yeah.
We've gotten a lot of streams on more than the record company had hoped for.
Cool.
And it's sad to say, but you judge by streams nowadays. And because we haven't pressed hard copies yet, which we will.
Right.
But we're waiting for things to get back in the swing. So we have a new single. It's called Renegades. It's a title track from the album. And it's just straight ahead rock and roll. I think kind of the vibe that people have been saying about the songs we've released so far is it sounds like classic LA Guns, but it's got like a footstep into the future.
Yeah. That's
kind of the vibe we've got. And that's what the record company said.
You've kind of hit the ground running as well. It's like, here's the new band, here's the live shows, here's some new music, straight out. Then the friggin' pandemic.
It's been crazy. I'm really glad we got to record the album in a room together, and we recorded in Hollywood.
Sweet.
And we did it in 10 days. That included 3 days of pre-production, rehearsing the songs, and then just a week we recorded everything.
Yeah. Awesome, man.
And you can feel that tension energy of rock on the album. You can feel it.
Right, I'm going to bring things right back and end on some horror stuff. Then we'll wrap it up because I don't want to take up too much of your time. But there have been endless horror remakes over the past 10 to 15 years. Which do you think hold up or which perhaps should have been left alone?
Remakes. A lot of them are pretty forgetful for me. I think the Evil Dead one was pretty good.
Yep.
That one was pretty good. Remakes lately.
I'm a big fan of I thought the Texas Chainsaw Massacre one was great.
Yeah, I don't remember it that well. I saw it. I saw everything. I remember, I saw the Friday the 13th one in the theater when it opened, and it was, I don't remember much of it.
No, that's the problem. They're well made, I guess, for the best part, but for some reason you don't remember much of it.
A lot of them are forgetful. If they have a different storyline, I think it's interesting. But if it's just like remaking, like they did that version of Psycho that was really bad.
Didn't they do that for like scene for scene or something?
Yeah, shot for shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that's too interesting. But
yeah,
if they do some backstory or something different, which some of the movies try to do. But I just watched the Child's Play one, and I'm like, that was fun just to sit through. It was, nothing deep or anything. But I'll watch those. I watch them all.
Like you say, the Evil Dead one was good, and I quite enjoyed the Fright Night one, especially when I watched it again.
I think I have to watch that one again.
Yeah, I thought.
When did that come out?
Oh, it's got to be about 10 years ago now.
Yeah.
Colin Farrell as Jerry Dandridge was great. You probably like it even more now because it's set in Vegas, and it's got that kind of.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Man. I think I did see that maybe when it came out back when Netflix used to send you DVDs.
Right. Yeah, that's right. So I enjoyed it. It's got a bit of a ropey CGI ending to it, but for the most part, it's pretty good.
All right. I'm checking that out.
If you could make a sequel to any of your old favorites, is there any you'd choose, or would you just rather leave them where they are?
I don't know. I like seeing something with new ideas. Something like you say, you don't watch the trailer and you just go in. Somebody told you to watch it and you just see what happens. You don't know what's going to happen. You're totally unprepared. That's how I like to watch something.
So last question, who is, in your opinion, is the greatest horror icon of all time? You can either go 80s or you can go classic or wherever you want to draw it from.
actor-wise or character-wise?
Either.
I still think Bela Lugosi's like the Prince of Darkness kind of, and like Boris Karloff. They're just so classic. And, I still like Vincent Price and all, that type of stuff. Even though I don't watch a lot of those Vincent Price movies, but really the 80s genre stuff is where I just geek out and just love watching everything.
Yeah. Who was your favorite, Freddy, Jason, or Michael?
Not Michael. No. I think it was, I don't know. I think I loved Jason. I loved the slasher. Because when Freddy got a little too comical, I was like, no, I wasn't into that. I was like, come on.
He had his own like jump the shark moment where he was on the broomstick in like
and he's doing the Wizard of Oz.
Like okay, I'm out.
Come on, man.
Yeah. Well, I shall let you go.
Yeah, make it over here sometime. We'll have to do a show together or something.
That'd be great, man. You take care.
Yeah. Great seeing you. Thanks, Rob.
Shout out to Kurt for taking the time to chat with us today on the Straight to Video podcast, and I want to wish him all the best of luck in his role with LA Guns as they get set to release their new album. Make sure to keep up to date at laguns.net for all the latest release dates and tour news when things begin to get back to normal in this crazy world. To you guys listening, hope you're enjoying this as much as me. The comments and feedback are massively welcome, so please keep them coming. Like I mentioned earlier, there's some really great talks on the way with some cool people who I know you're going to love, so keep posted on all the social networks. You can find Straight to Video on Instagram and Twitter at simply @straight2vid. That's straight and a number 2, VID, or hit me up at Laney74 and I'd love to hear from you. So until next time, I've been your host Rob Lane and this has been the Straight to Video podcast. Take it easy and speak again real soon.